I've set myself an objective, and that's to expose you to the challenges of the Internet of Everything. And I'm going to build this Internet of Everything up for you, because the point is, if you just present it, it looks like one amorphous mass of a slide, and you can think, well, what's that? So basically, I'm going to build this up, and then we're going to look at the technology challenges associated. But the big thing I want to do is actually have a look at the security challenges and the data integrity that's a part of this. And there's no solution, because it's a very complex problem I'm going to present. But what I want to be able to do is provoke more discussion amongst ourselves now, but with emails. So we can talk to each other through emails, and we can get some dialogue going about the challenge I shall put to you in the end. And it will link into our next speaker. So what will happen is that we'll take it down a level. So, and this was fortuitous, by the way, or was it planned? I don't know if it was planned or fortuitous. Anyway, that's what we want to do. So, oh dear, this is the thing. Everybody has to have a list, don't they, of what they're going to talk about. So here's my list of 10. But we're not going to bounce through it, because everyone will say, oh no, there's another 8 sections to go. Well, what I really want to do is get to those challenges at the end, the technology challenge, the business and people challenge, and then the security challenge itself. And what I'm going to do is present some of our research into this to you, and it will leave you with some thoughts about how we take the process forward even further. So, well, everything starts with the military. I was a military research scientist, but the Internet of Everything and the Internet of Things is actually with the military now. What they've done is they've connected the warfighter through to aircraft, to tanks, to whatever you want to name, ships, etc., etc. And they're presenting data in the way that the warfighter needs this data to be able to make decisions. So therefore, the data itself has to be processed, up to date, with high integrity, and presented in the right format. This is the real key thing, presented in the right format. I'm sure you've all looked at people's research, and they say, these are my results, yeah? 20 pages of data. And you think, oh, good grief. How do I make head or tail of that? And my PhD students do that to me every time. And I think, oh, we've got to present this a bit better than that. But this is what this is all about. And I'm going to give you an example here. The F-35, which is a brand new fighter, strike fighter, all the data from its sensors, and all the sensors on the ground, and all of the command and control systems are presented to the pilot, who happens to be flying the aeroplane, so he obviously can't read all this data. But the data is presented in his helmet. And if he wants to see the ground, he doesn't have to turn the aircraft upside down. He just looks down between his legs, and he will see the ground, because the sensors in the aircraft will know that he's looking down and will feed this information through to it. So what we have actually done is you're getting the Internet of Everything. But that data is being presented to him, and because of the very smart helmet, it's being presented in front of his eyes, and his eyes can interpret this. That's what's going to happen to us with the Internet of Everything. We're going to get data just like that. So, Jacob Morgan for Forbes said 30 billion objects are going to be connected together. Well, I think it's more than that. I think it's going to probably closer to 100 billion. But let me put this in context for you. The IP version 4 has an address space of 4 billion. Yeah? I know it's slightly less, but I've rounded the numbers up for you. IPv6 has 4 times 10 to the power 38 addresses, which is 4,000 billion addresses. So that's IP version 6. So therefore, that's why IPv6 has come in, because we needed to get this address space up. So now we can say, yep, we can do that. We can now address the Internet of Things, because we need an address space for it, because of IPv6. Now, just as an example there, the jet engine, an aircraft, of course, is one of those addresses. But so are the engines on the aircraft. And the engines can report their status, and it's called ACARS, by the way, just in case, for those people that do know about it. And ACARS will say, we've got a bearing heating up here, and it will tell Rolls-Royce or GE through the systems that it's heating up. So as it lands, the aircraft lands, they will repair that part of the engine, or the electronics, or something to do with the aircraft. So this Internet of Things and Internet of Everything is actually creeping up on us. But when I said yesterday about evolutions, yeah, it's an evolution, but the Internet of Things itself is a massive, massive, massive revolution. It's going to change everything about our lives. And we may then turn around and, I don't know, in a few years' time say, I don't want to be part of this. I'm going to move out of it. I'm going to move to Wyoming in America. And just in case people have never been to Wyoming, it has a population of 4. That's all I found there anyway, when I went through it. It's a wonderful place. You just don't meet anybody. Fantastic. So here's the Internet of Things itself. But it needs this communication system. And the communication system is obviously the World Wide Web, but we need complete satellite communication systems. We need Wi-Fi systems. We will use UHF, VHF, and our cell phone systems. And all of these systems and all of these networks will provide this infrastructure for these things and people that are sitting there. So this is the big thing. But that bit in the bottom there, the protocols, interfaces, timings, and language, we haven't got that right yet. This hasn't been defined well. It will be, but we'll see it going wrong as it goes forward, and then they'll start to put it right, etc., etc. So even before this IoT becomes reality, so Internet of Everything becomes reality, the IoT is coming to bring us together. And it takes data and puts it in a valuable manner. And that's what it's actually doing. So it's to say, here are our objects sitting together. We've now got the data. We now group that data to be meaningful to us so we can interpret it. Because otherwise you end up with this data everywhere and all these objects everywhere itself. So these 4 pillars, data, the processing thing, but this is the bit that I really want to bring out, because this is really what it's all about. We've got all of this stuff here, which is the Internet of Things, and I know there's a lot more of these, but we can't put them on here, so just go out and out next. But critical infrastructure, the home appliances, transportation, but wearables. That's the big thing coming in now. So the human being is being put in. But this is the bit that makes it different. Data, processes, and people. And that has to be integrated as a system. And that's the bit that we're going to find very, very difficult to do, is integrating that as a system. So, and I've just put it at the back there, it needs into a cohesive intelligence system. And if it's not cohesive, then we start to move from system part to system part to system part. And we, as human beings, then have to take the data from one bit, interpret it into another bit, interpret it into another bit, etc. That's not what it's all about. What we have to be able to do is just move smoothly inside our cyberspace, if you like, seamlessly from one part of it to another part. And there comes part of the challenge. So, this is just a graphic, by the way. It's quite meaningless from the point of view of a system. But we've got this huge, great network sitting up there in the sky, and that's not quite amorphous, but it will certainly be able to change. But look at this. We've got the social media. We've got other types of media. All our homes. Medical systems. But just give you an example now. You're wearing a wearable, which is taking your blood pressure and taking your alkaline levels, etc., as you're walking along. It will then turn around and say, we think you're heading for some form of problem here, and makes an appointment for you to see the doctor. It actually is there now, isn't it? Because the only thing difference is you read the data itself. You think, because you get yourself a blood pressure meter, whoa, my blood pressure's up, or my sugar levels are up. there is absolutely no reason why that shouldn't actually just send the data straight off to your general practitioner, and he makes an appointment for you. So we're only one remove from actually doing that. And he could tell you something very serious wrong with your body, and you better get there pretty quickly as well. Because the heart attack and strokes can actually be measured. It's just that we don't have the measurement devices on us at the moment. So, but that will come, because that's part of the wearables. And the shopping thing, the middle bottom one there. You're in a shopping mall. None of you have it, but neither do I at the moment. But your hearing aid battery starts to go. It will tell you, oh, you're just passing a shop. Buy a new battery. Or it knows you've booked a holiday because all that data is on there as well. So it said sunglasses. By the way, this shop here has sunglasses, but don't shop there. There's a better deal down there. Sun cream. Anything you want to name. It's there, isn't it? We actually have the data now. We're just not being able to get it to our minds quick enough to be able to interpret it. So, my detour, I know this was presentations yesterday, and I couldn't actually do the entanglement of quantum mechanics, so I couldn't attend 2 or 3 of the presentations at the same time. But what I did, I went around and listened to parts of them, etc. So, big data. The 3 V's, variety, and by the way, just in case you don't read about it, go and read about Ashby's laws of requisite variety. That tells you, that gives you a clue and measures the complexity for you. Velocity, it's quickly changing, and it moves quickly as well. So how do you know you've got the right data if it's stored in different places? We need to have the data in one place, or at least we need to have it consistent in several places. Well, many of us know how difficult that is. And then you've got the volume, etc. Well, there's huge amounts of that. But it doesn't have veracity, and that's my 4th V. Truthfulness. Can you trust it? Veracity. So that's the bit that's missing at the moment from this big data. We've got the 3, but not the 4th. Then the big data and the communications, the big data provides the engine for all of this, and my communications, the infrastructure. And as long as I can get the processes, the people, and the things connected, surely then I have the Internet of Everything. Yeah? Maybe. If we can connect it together in the correct manner. Again, this graphic, which will be given to you, it's an old one, it's not mine, but I have started to update the data, but this is what happens every minute on the internet. What we've got here, for instance, is that you've got 6 million Facebook views each minute. That's 2015. It's now 100 times more than that. So we're now talking about something like 200 million. So that gives you some idea to how big this data is, and how big this how the bandwidth of this communication system, and how that bandwidth itself has to be brought together. Just on the bit here which says the number of network devices. Well, that was the population of the world. It said by 2015 it's going to be 2 times the population of the world. Well, it's not now. It's going to be something like 200 times the population of the world. Sorry, 50 times the population of the world, which actually brings it to 100 billion that we had in the first place. So the devices themselves, or the things themselves, because they all create data and they all need data, are going to have this huge amount of bandwidth that we need. So, business itself, and I did speak to a colleague from here who was talking about economics earlier. Well, this is my one thing to the economics of this, but the business processes, they have to be integrated. Well, they are integrated to some degree now, but unless we get them all integrated, it's not going to work. And I'm going to give you an example of this in a moment. So fully integrated access to the markets. Marketeers would love that, wouldn't they, if they could get that information. It's coming. Tracking of individuals to sales outlets. Well, that's coming too, because have you noticed that when you log on to Google, you're also getting adverts? I'll tell you a funny story. One of the lords in UK, from the House of Lords, he was not very well up on technology, but he accused the Labour Party of every time I log on to your site to have a look at your Labour Party, I get pornography on my site. And someone said to him, no, that's not quite how it happens. It puts the things on there that you've been looking at, etc., etc. And we didn't hear any more from him. But that's, of course, that's more what happens here, isn't it? Because you're logging on to Google and you're logging on to whatever you're logging on to, it's giving you advertisements. And because of cookies, that's being fed back to the companies themselves. We've only got to get the reverse happening, and they'll guide you to wherever they want you to shop. So it's almost there. But anyway, my example here is on just-in-time, the JIT. And you take a supermarket. Well, a supermarket, the big ones, Walmart's, Tesco's, whatever, have you noticed how big the stores are? But if you wander around the back, there's no warehouse, is there? No. Because all the stuff arrives and all the storage of the stuff is on the shelves. So the only way they can get that through to the shelves is, in fact, have just-in-time ordering. So as you check out through the barcodes then tell the warehouse this has been ordered, and then they restock continuously the store. And that's of course how it happens. Whoa, let's take this one step further. You're at home now, you're forming up your list for shopping. And by the way, I'll put that onto online, etc. And that now comes online. Before they need the barcodes, and they know you shop there because they've got all these records, the stuff is on order before you even go to the store.
David, quick
Yeah.
second. Why would I go to the store? It could just be delivered to my house, right?
That's another thing. Yeah, that's an excellent point. So this is just in case you need exercise. Because otherwise, we're going to be sitting there in our homes, and everything is going to be working around us, etc., etc. And but yeah, it's absolutely right, isn't it? It can be delivered to your home. But hey, let's take Heinz baked beans, which is a good one. Yeah. So the Heinz baked beans arrive just in time. Tesco's will fine Heinz for delivering too many cases of baked beans, which means they have to get the ordering right. Baked beans, believe it or not, they don't grow in UK. And so therefore, that has to be put on order around the world. And now the just-in-time link, so going out, and they're all working, by the way, they're working now, but they have to get better. All the way out to Africa or wherever the quantity comes from. And that has to arrive just in time. And that is why when you go onto airlines, you have to pay for the baggage to go in the hold, because the hold is there for transporting freight, just-in-time freight. And the airline gets paid a lot of money for that. And of course, all of that is then connected through this thing. It's actually working now, but it's going to get better. So the critical infrastructure is the other thing. Gas supplies, electricity supplies, et cetera, they have to know how much electricity to produce. I borrowed this graphic, but basically it gives the J.A.T. Kearney the actual money it's worth. This is the Internet of Things, by the way, $100 trillion by 2020. That's how much it's going to, that's what the global trade is. And if you look around that, you can then see the amount that the Internet of Things will bring into that. But of course, it's more than that, because you wouldn't get that information without it. Another graphic here, it's just the smart cities themselves. And what you've got there is the growth rates occurring just over, up until 2020, the 1.5 trillion coming into cities as well. If companies are not part of this Internet of Things and the Internet of Everything, they will not succeed. They cannot succeed because they wouldn't be able to get hold of their parts or spares or ingredients or whatever you want to say it is. So let's move this on to something much more scary. The picture on the left is where we are at the moment. We're picking this up on our tablets, we're picking it up on our iPhones, we're picking it up on our whatever device we have. What we've seen from the pilot, that's where it's going. It's going to go there on the right. So sooner than later, we're going to have the head-up displays on our contact lenses or glasses or whatever we're wearing, but we'll probably have to wear something. Later than sooner, I think that information will transfer directly into your head. But can you start seeing now the really frightening part of this? Because if it is doing that, it's affecting you subliminally. Get that right, that word. You don't want to say that when you've been drinking too much. So what will happen then is that you're being persuaded to do something. And we've seen what happens in elections with people who are persuaded, like we have to pull out of Europe, which don't go there, or President Trump becoming president. Was that a manipulation or did it happen? I'll leave that to you. But that's the problem we have at the moment. So it's this manipulation. We're certainly where it is on the right, on the left at the moment. The military are moving to the right. Within your lifetimes, I think we'll move totally to the right. And the network that supports all of this, well, we all think of networks, but have you ever thought about this? The infrastructure for the internet is hierarchical. It's recursive. Hierarchical because we've got the backbone networks, we've got the small networks, etc. But of course it folds into itself as well. So it's all recursive. They're homogeneous and heterogeneous because they're linear and nonlinear. They're built with no grand design. They just spread. But it works. It's scale-free, loosely coupled, no control, and ubiquitous operations. That's your networks. We couldn't have designed it, could we? It just happened by some fluke. Well, perhaps not quite by fluke, but it's really quite frightening that how we got there. But this great network does exist, and this is, of course, providing what we need to do. So, to add to the complexity, you as individuals, we're in social media, we're in news networks, we live in our government and state networks, we're often in transport networks, shopping malls, superstores, cell phone, you're all on those, I know, except hospital and medical networks. None of you are hopefully in the criminal justice system, but I'll just put it there just in case. But you see this, we exist. This network, this ubiquitous network is there, but we exist in all the other networks. And you move quite happily between these networks. And the data that you have also has to be consistent between those networks, because otherwise your life would fall apart. So there is the start of something really quite phenomenal. And one or more, you live in one or more of those, probably more, and incarnations, any one time. And that's your life. Of course, everything on the internet is true, isn't it? Do you believe it? Or is it Pinocchio? Your nose starts getting bigger as the lies go up, etc. So, how do we address this problem of fake news? I challenge you. You would not be able to know that most of the stuff you read is fake or true. You would if it's your subject, because you're very au fait with it. You would actually know that. But if it's a subject that you deal with, you're in and out of, fake news or fake something is really difficult to spot. This is manipulation. And governments will then start to manipulate. It's called psychological operations in warfare, PSYOPs. And what happens is, and the military are very good at it, what they then start to do is influence what you're doing. Anyway, securing it. Well, we've looked at this, several things. Attack vectors. We can probably sort most of the attack vectors out now, but that's not the same as tomorrow, is it? The criminal organizations and state organizations are developing attack vectors much, much faster than you're doing defense vectors. They will always be ahead of the curve. And so we've got this fake news, so we've got this manipulation. Now I've got this problem associated with the manipulation of data as well, because I can put malware into the system. I've worked out a lot of the kill chains associated with these attack vectors, but the real problem is this. These will never, ever, ever be good enough, because the money for developing the attack is hugely more than the money there for doing defense. I borrowed this from EY, but the point I want to trade here is that cognitive security is coming from these basically understanding threats and what the threat might do. It's not actually defending yourself. It's actually just understanding the threat itself. And the AI systems will be quite good at that. My research, now we've come to it, after all this meandering through this subject, is that static monitoring of the Internet of Everything will not suffice. The entropy of the network, for those people that understand Shannon, the entropy of the network is far too great. We use spiders to track down people for child pornography and child uses, etc. And these spiders we send out every night. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, looking for the parts of the internet which are dark. But there's no reason why spiders couldn't sit out there, and they will have cognitive learning associated with them as well. And they would look for perturbations occurring on the stuff that isn't part of the normal use of the internet and report it. So this is now using a systematic way of attacking the attacker. We'll go and look for you, rather than we'll sit back and wait for you to attack us. We're going to come out searching for you. We'll get you. And
David, how is normal defined here? Is that a technical entity of normal, or an ethical, or a moral? What is normal?
yeah, that's interesting as well. I don't need people like this asking these questions. I really don't. I really don't. I'm not having coffee with you tonight. I think you could get normal behavior building up over time. And you start to look at that behavior. And I think behavior moves on, and you keep monitoring the behavior. But what this will do is look for not something which is a small change in behavior, but something. If it's a DDoS attack here, a denial of service, you'd spot it immediately, wouldn't you? But if it's then data that somebody's probing a database by looking for different passwords, you'd also spot it, or hopefully you'd spot it. But this is so this dynamic spiders will police the network, and they'll have to report back to, and here I've got the I have to use real spiders, by the way, and spider webs for the networks, but they report back to centers which are also AI. So this is, if you like, the fight back. We'll have to use artificial intelligence. We will have to use cognitive learning, et cetera, et cetera. And the only way that we can find out what's going wrong is to put spiders or things out there that crawl around the internet looking for things that have a problem. As I say, I've got a lot of experience with these spiders, so I'm more or less happy that they can be done. Just that they're not very smart at the moment. And they wouldn't be able to spot any behavioral changes. So my conclusion is that IoT is currently being implemented by business with some selected use at the moment, or domestic use. It will be the preferred solution for critical infrastructure. This is the only way that we can manage that infrastructure in the future. IOE is being planned, and this will add information, we know that, et cetera, et cetera. The internet security, this is the key bit, is barely able to cope with the sophisticated attack vectors, and it's being, as they are a long way ahead of our defense vectors. IoT and IOE security needs to be studied systematically. Have you noticed about it? People come up with solutions, and they don't understand what the problem is. And I have this problem with people who don't think systematically. You have to define the problem, get it agreed, then have a look for solutions, rather than say, hey, I've got a whole bunch of solutions here, let's look for some problems. Yeah? How many of you met people, none of you are here like that, of course, but how many people have you met that are like that? And the last part there, systems research has shown that policing spiders could be part of the solution. So I'm going to leave you with that, and hopefully that people can talk to me over the internet and come back and say, we've seen your slides, David. They're a complete load of rubbish. I'm quite happy with that, by the way, but as long as you tell me why it's rubbish, that's the bit that matters, because otherwise I just ignore it. Or I think you should think of this and do this, etc. Oh, wouldn't this be a good idea? But if we could do that, we can start to have the revolution with safety. Anyway, thanks.